The JK OT boots have been getting a lot of love lately, but are they worth the hype? Well, maybe not. Welcome, I'm Murawski, and this is the channel that helps you own better, look better, and live better. It seems like JK is pretty much everywhere nowadays, which is good because that's what you have to do to be noticed, but I certainly was interested to pick up a pair for myself so that I could find out what all the fuss was about. JK are the initials of John Kadzi, who learned the skill of boot and shoe making in Ukraine. He immigrated to the United States in 1994 and began JK Boots in 2008. In the Pacific Northwest, there exist at least 6 boot companies who make very similar styles of boot, with White's being the oldest from 1853 and Frank's being the youngest, being started in 2016. Each company has had to make themselves distinct, either through unique models, leathers, or customizations. So when I was looking at JK for a boot to review, because honestly, when I review the same types of boots over and over again, it gets a little stale. But the OT certainly popped out at me. Now, since then, a few other reviewers have done videos on these, so I'm not gonna try to go over the same stuff that they have. But actually, the first guy who told me about these was my buddy Taylor over at Best Damn EDC. We had gone back and forth about some boots because he got a big cut in his Iron Rangers, which, look, the guy reviews knives for a living, okay? So my bet is that he actually sliced it with a knife, but won't tell anybody about it. But he was actually pretty excited about his JKs, so I was like, all right, cool, sounds good. Let me get that one and dig into it a little bit more. Now, the OT, which stands for overtime, and those JK guys, man, they really like their acronyms. It's supposed to address the 2 biggest complaints that people have about Pacific Northwest boots, that being flexibility and weight. They accomplish this in 2 ways. Number 1, by removing the front part of the midsole, and 2, by incorporating a 132 unit sole on the bottom here rather than a leather stacked heel. Now here's where the nomenclature gets a little funny, and I had to clarify this for myself. What they did, instead of taking a normal midsole and then kind of, cutting it on an angle and really feathering it in there, they used what they call a lineman shank, which is actually an additional part that you can get put onto a boot to give you a little bit more rigidity. They took that and put that in the back here. But aside from those 2 things, everything else is the same as in their high-end Super Duty boot. I ordered mine in the redwood colorway, which combines a roughout vamp and heel counter with a smooth leather upper. And this has become a very popular combination thanks to the abrasion resistance of roughout leather, which really seems to shrug off most light cuts and scrapes. But I also think that, especially in this color, it's a really good looking combination. With the colors and the tan sole combined with that reddish brown leather, it's a handsome looking boot. In fact, this is the first boot in a long time that I've gotten compliments on at work. Not that I'm necessarily seeking out compliments from 50-year-old construction workers, but, I'll take what I can get at this point. Their other comment wasn't quite so positive, and that was, dude, those things are squeaking. It's basically just leather on leather. Anytime you have leather on leather, it'll squeak, especially with veg tan. And that's why they'll put some sort of filler material typically between the insole and the midsole. Sometimes cork filler, sometimes something else, but they'll do that just so that there's not that squeaking, which you can't get rid of. So in my desperation, I actually went back to the packing material because these came with instructions, which I had, like most men, taken and put them aside without even looking at them. They also came with a bottle of Obanoff's boot oil, so maybe I could have forgotten some step that was essential. So I actually went back, I oiled them up, and the squeak went away. So read the instruction manual. Now, as I mentioned, the construction of the OT boot is the same as their top-of-the-line Super Duty until you get to the sole. So you still get 8 to 9 ounce leather, or an option for bison should you choose it, brass hardware, fire-resistant thread, and a very interesting gusseted tongue made from flexible and almost pebbled-looking leather. This is something I've never seen before. Double-row stitch-down construction, 8-inch height, and available in a safety toe. This is probably a very familiar formula if you wear work boots daily. The finishing on these boots is among the best I've ever seen coming out of the Pacific Northwest. Now, all of the companies, I don't care who it is, have had some stitching that I've looked at on Instagram or on their pages, and I'm like, ooh, that looks a little weird. Especially when they have to do an arc like this. Sometimes it'll come up, it'll go straight, and you wonder what the guy behind the stitch machine was doing that day. Which brings me to the use cases. If this is such a great build, then why isn't every company building their boots this way? Well, the reason is that this is great for some people. And the two people who I saw do reviews on this were Taylor from Best Damn EDC, who I mentioned earlier, and then Weston from Roseanneville. And the two of them are doing what I would say is light duty work, okay? So a lot of people, especially if you're a homeowner or whatever, and you're not in construction, you can't be blamed for doing the work that's available to you, which I would say in that case is light duty, where these definitely shine. But what if you're somebody who's doing something more than light duty work? Which is why I think we have to go into the reason that those other boots are built the way they are. So sometimes you have a double midsole, sometimes you have a triple midsole. That Viberg that I mentioned earlier gives you like an inch of a midsole. Who needs that? You know who needs that? People who are spending all day on pegs, walking on rebar, standing on runged ladders, kicking a shovel, doing really heavy work. If you've ever at your home had to stand on a ladder in your socks or your slippers and change a light bulb or just stand on a ladder for any amount of time, you know how fatiguing it is. And that is just a very, very light duty case. The boots that you wear are like little platforms for your feet. Now, how rigid those need to be is going to depend on what you're doing in them. There's one other benefit to a really thick midsole, and that's you get a little bit more of a spring effect. So as your toe flexes this way, it'll sort of help you push off. So if your day is spent carrying heavy things around, then you may appreciate that, which is why a lot of those guys won't wear sneakers. Their foot gets a little bit of help from the springiness of the boot itself. But those boots have downsides. They are heavier, they are stiffer, and sometimes if you're operating equipment or even driving to the job, you could feel sort of disconnected because you're so separated from the pedals. So those work in some situations. In almost every other situation though, these do shine. I really enjoyed walking around the job site and putting some miles on with that flexibility and lightweight. They really did not feel the same way. And I just came off of a month of wearing the Frank's Patriots, which are like a full build. This is like the Black Album, you know? Like if the Super Duty is Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets and Justice for All, this is like the Black Album. It's still killer, it's great. But you could also put it on and listen to it with your mom. So I've spent a lot of time on application because I think that's the thing that is gonna really matter with these boots. And I don't wanna see you go and spend $550 an investment in your feet on the wrong boots. These will work really well for most people, I believe. But if you're somebody who has one of those specific use cases, as I mentioned, you might be better off with the Super Duty. So just make sure that you know, because sometimes unless you've gone through those type of things, you don't know what to look for. So just keep that in mind. Make sure, I'm here as a data point. So make sure that you use this in addition to those other guys I mentioned, to other reviews and stuff like that, to make the best purchase for yourself. I don't need a whole bunch of angry construction workers coming after me because they bought the wrong boot, all right? And if you want to see more reviews on work boots, I put them in a playlist right here. In that playlist is every work boot that I've ever reviewed, and you can go through there and find the best one for you. Maybe it is the OT, or maybe it's not, but that's how you're gonna, get another data point along your journey of foot euphoria, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.